Hello there guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Sal speaking. Today we're gonna have a little discussion about Christopher McCandless' experience. Specifically, we're gonna talk about Into the Wild. I read the book and I found the book to be very interesting. I watched the movie and I really liked the movie as well. In April 1992, a young man from a well-to-do family hitchhiked to Alaska and walked alone into the wilderness. When did his journey start and why? Immediately after graduating with honors from Emory University in the summer of 1990, McCandless was nowhere to be found. He basically dropped out of sight, so to speak. He changed his name. As we know, McCandless had given $25,000 in savings to charity, especially to the Oxfam organization. But so this is what we read in the book's cover. But if you open the book and if you have the book, actually if you haven't read this book, I highly suggest you to read this book. This is a really interesting book. I really like real life stories. I really like to read something that is somewhat real, something that you can learn from. So if you open the book, so if you take the author's note, so here it says, McCandless gave the entire balance of a $24,000 savings account to charity. So there is a discrepancy in here, and the book's cover it talks about $25,000. In the author's note, it talks about $24,000. So now my guess is that he probably had $25,000, so he gave $24,000 to charity, and he probably must have kept $1,000. And I don't know if he used some of this money or if he didn't. I know that he eventually burned the money he had in his wallet, but we don't know how much money he burned. There are some pictures where he burns the money. If any of you could explain to me this, I would be very grateful. I just found this discrepancy between the book's cover and the author's note. I personally reckon that Christopher McCandless was more mature than his age, but not everybody thinks it the same way. So an Alaskan park ranger named Peter Christian wrote, "When you consider McCandless from my perspective, you quickly see that what he did wasn't even particularly daring, just stupid, tragic, and inconsiderate. First off, he spent very little time learning how to actually live in the wild. He arrived at the Stampede Trail without even a map of the area. If he had a good map, he could have walked out of his predicament. Essentially, Chris McCandless committed suicide." Well, wait a minute. This is really heavy. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this statement because I think he was more mature than his age. He was a brave man. He wanted to explore. He wanted to experience. He wanted to see the world from a different perspective. Every country have their own cultures, Americans are different than Italians and so forth. But if we get the best out of every culture, we can improve ourselves, St. Augustine said that if you don't travel, you have read just one page of your life. But when you travel, you can read the whole book of life and you can have a complete experience. Bruce Lee did that with Jeet Kune Do, He picked up the best things about martial arts and he made his own martial art. He made something that was suitable for himself. So talking about Americans and Italians, I should make a video about these differences because there are so many differences. I think talking about some bad things about the Italian culture, we found that people live with their parents till they're 40, 50 years old, and that's not a good thing. I lived in America and I know how it is in America, and I have seen that, and I knew that even before going to America, that American people are more independent. Italians tend to stay more with their parents until they get married. They're less self-reliant, and American people are more self-reliant than Italian people, of course. Jon Krakauer, he defends Christopher McCandless. He had the desire of being the first to explore a blank spot on the map. Although in 1992 there were not blank spots on the map. Krakauer says that he simply got rid of the map. He didn't need a map. In his own mind, the terror would remain incognita. This is a shout of freedom. He was looking for freedom. He was looking for truth. He was looking for reality. He was looking for morals. I think Alexander Supertramp had a great sense of freedom. I suppose he didn't like the idea of political boundaries, because at the end of the day, and this is something I think as well, I personally reckon that we all are citizens of the world, and as such, we have the rights to be treated in the same way. It really intrigues me how he found the courage to leave everything. But as I went on reading more about his life, I discovered how his parents had a really strong influence in his life's choices. In the book The Wild Truth by Christopher McCandless, who's Christopher Johnson McCandless' sister, she writes and she tells us more about her dad's character, her dad's personality. Walt McCandless had a really strong personality. In the book The Wild Truth we read, he said, "I am God," he would shout. "Nothing I say or do can be wrong." So here we can see how arrogant he was. And Karine is describing, and she says, "I looked over at Chris, who looked as serious as he always did in church. I knew that. Like me, he was enchanted by the idea of a father's pure and unconditional love existing somewhere outside of our reality." So their faith in God kind of helped them during this really tough time. So Chris abandoned his car, to which he was very attached. In fact, he didn't want a new car. He didn't want materialistic things. And he burned all the money in his wallet. He invented a new lifestyle for himself, taking up residence at the rugged margin of our society, wandering across North America in search of raw, transcendent experience. Jon Krakauer uses the words "long captivated by Tolstoy's writings." Alexander Supertramp was so attracted by Tolstoy's writings that he felt like emulating Tolstoy's asceticism. When he headed to Alaska, he was looking for Tolstoyan renunciation. Reading about Christopher McCandless' life not only inspired me, but also led me to understand more about society. We are poisoned by modern society. It seems like to me that we all need to take the same steps. We need to do sports, so to get our university degree, and then we need to find a good job, buy a good house, start a family, having children, and there is a specific pattern that we all need to follow, and it seems like everybody's life has to be in the same way. But I really like how Christopher McCandless kind of rebelled against society. His whole idea of going to the wild was to find himself, I think. Well, Christopher McCandless wanted to go back to society at some point, but unfortunately this experience didn't have a happy ending. Today we are surrounded by technology, we are surrounded by social medias, we just go on Facebook and we do lots of things. I think that sometimes we just need to take some time off and just do things, explore the world, travel, see new people, try new food, experience life for what it is. I hope to talk more about Christopher McCandless and to make a more profound study about him. Everybody tends to talk a lot about his Alaskan Odyssey, about his Alaskan experience. I'm really interested about the previous experience he had. I'm talking about his travels around the United States of America and how he would get from one place to another. What did he do to live? What did he do to support himself? How did he get his food? How did he travel? How did he manage to do what he did? To me, is extraordinary. It is something that is not easy to do. You need to have courage to rebel against society. I hope you like this topic. I hope we can all learn more about him. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, if you feel sad, you better call Sal. Bye.